Good day. It's time for another quick history lesson, folks. The war between PlayStation and Xbox has been raging on for ages. In some cases, it's even older than some of you watching right now, which makes me want to slowly walk into an ocean with bricks tied to my legs. That's a little dark humor for you boys. Now, ever since the nice Japanese folk from Sony came out with the PlayStation 1, people started going crazy for those futuristic 3D graphics. It had state-of-the-art 2 megabytes of RAM and 1 megabyte of VRAM that was every virgin's wet dream. This was happening back in 1994. 6 years later, in 2000, the PlayStation 2 was released. Right at the turn of the millennium, when the world was free of the evil plague that came from China and encompassed the entire globe, infecting its population and spreading like wildfire. I'm talking, of course, about the plague they call TikTok. What else? Anyway, a year later, in 2001, in the old US of A, the biggest nerd on the planet partnered with the coolest man on the planet and released an all-American console known as the Xbox. It was then that the famous rivalry between PlayStation and Xbox fanboys started, taking sides and yelling at one another, cause let's face it, their broke ass couldn't afford to own both consoles, and ever since, people just won't shut up about which console is best. Now, the short story is, the best console is the one you love to game on, you nincompoop. Who cares about teraflops or RAM? People who don't have sex, that's who. If you don't believe me, just try it. If you still care about the hardware after you get some, then there's something wrong with your software, boy. So stop being an old sourpuss like this fellow here.
I must break you.
And start being more like this cool cat.
I had sex with her. I had sex with Jan.
The war raged on into the next generation, with Xbox making one of the best consoles that ever existed, the Xbox One. Nah, I'm only kidding. Some more dark humor for you boys. The Xbox 360 was an amazing console. Heck, I owned 2 of them. One revolution for which this console was famous for was, of course, the Kinect. Now, son, if you can't tell by now that I'm joking, you might as well change the channel. Anyway, the 360 was the developer's wet dream, whereas the PlayStation 3 was a nightmare to develop on because of its overly complicated internal architecture. But even though the PlayStation 3 was being outsold by the 360 in the beginning, by the end, they were both being sold in roughly the same quantity. The next generation, however, was a completely different story. To say that the PS4 was winning the match in terms of popularity over the Xbox One would be a massive understatement.
At $499 in the US, and 499 euros in European markets, and 429 pounds in the UK.
PlayStation 4 will be available at $399.
Fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message if you don't, like it?
If you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline device.
PlayStation 4 disc-based games don't need to be connected online to play.
We'll get him this time.
When you buy a game, it's attached to your account and your profile, and you're going to be able to play that wherever you go.
When a gamer buys a PS4 disc, they have the rights to use that copy of the game. They can trade in the game at retail, sell it to another person, lend it to a friend, or keep it forever.
We're bringing a new Kinect sensor paired with every Xbox One, which puts you at the center of your entertainment.
A stereo camera that can sense the depth of the environment in front of it and track the 3D position of the controller via its light bar.
Well, that's basically how it happened, more or less. But what rings true to this day is the way in which both consoles were revealed. That was a key factor that ultimately led to the PS4 being the second most sold home console in history, second only to the PS2. Fun fact, PlayStation occupies 4 spots out of the top 5. So kids, the moral of the story is that full-on greed is not good. But the way to victory is focusing on what the consumer or the player wants and needs, meaning video games and not stupid television.
TV experience. TV and movies. TV. Xbox. Watch TV. TV remote. TV experience. TV. Sports TV. Anybody?
But now that that's ancient history, it's time to focus on the current hardware, namely the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series. So we're 6 months in with the new consoles. Well, mainly those who could get their hands on them. I had to win a PS5 lottery to be able to pay for mine, and the Xbox Series X I bought it from someone else at a higher price. He wasn't a scalper, just a normal dude who played it for a bit and decided it wasn't for him. Got lucky as well, it only cost me $100 more. Anyway, I've been playing for a while now on both consoles, and I just wanted to say my piece about the entire quote-unquote console wars of this generation. First off, the PS5. Bought this at the beginning of December, and I was mad in love with it from the start. First game I played was the little Astrobot dude, and let me tell you, it blew my socks off. Not the game itself, of course, although it was fun to play, but what really impressed me was how the game implemented the features from the DualSense controller. Indeed, the experience cannot be relayed by word of mouth or video, you just have to try it out for yourself to feel everything. Keyword here being feeling. And hearing, cause with headphones on and no sound coming from the controller, the amazement was literally halved for me. I had my concerns about the controller from the beginning, but not in the way it would seem. The features are there, the technology is amazing to be honest, but in my experience with new tech or features, third-party developers are simply lazy and can't be bothered to spend too much time on something new, God forbid. Exhibit A, the PS4 controller's touchpad. How many developers, except first-party Sony, used it to its full potential? Extremely few. At most, they made the first half of the touchpad open the map in a game, and the other half to open the inventory or something similar. That's what I was afraid of, and still am to be honest. That third-party devs won't put in the effort to truly implement the DualSense's features into a game. Indie devs maybe, the hope lies with them. And I hope I'm wrong because they could do some amazing stuff with it. The proof is already there in Astrobot or Returnal. And in Returnal, oh my god you guys, it feels amazing. If you pull the left trigger halfway down until you feel it pushing back, you aim. But if you pull it all the way down, you get alternate fire mode. Which is kind of amazing when you think about it, because it was then that I realized that Sony invented another trigger inside the trigger. So you potentially have 4 triggers depending on how the devs want to mold the game design with hardware features. Except these 2 full-on exclusives, I also finished Demon's Souls twice. Not to brag, okay, maybe just a little bit. Now, Demon's Souls can do without the DualSense features. There's nothing of importance here. It's just that when you draw the bow, if you don't fully press the trigger, you feel some resistance. But again, nothing worthy of more than a mentioning. These are the only 3 main first-party exclusives, of which one is a niche remake, one is a glorified tech demo, and the last one is a really niche roguelike game that's only for the hardcorest of gamers. Returnal isn't something you play after 8 or 10 hours at the office, I can assure you. So yeah, if I were speaking strictly from a true next-gen exclusives point of view, they don't really justify you buying the console right now. I know the hype is huge, I had it myself, but trust me on this one, you are not missing out on a lot from this point of view. For example, after I finished Demon's Souls a second time, until Returnal came out, the only thing my PS5 was doing was playing Netflix and gathering dust. However, that's not to say that the PS Plus collection you get when you're subscribed to their service isn't awesome. They also have the free play at home thing they do when they give you extra games and so on. There are games for the PS5, it's just that, more or less, they're the same ones from the PS4. Which is not a bad thing, but I played every major PS4 exclusive at least once, and for the ones I didn't play twice, I'm still waiting for the 60 FPS update. And for the life of me, I cannot figure out what the hell Sony is doing with Uncharted 4, Lost Legacy, The Last of Us Part 2 and Bloodborne when there are other Sony first-party games that do 60 FPS really well. This I do not understand for the moment. I just hope to God they don't want to milk The Last of Us Part 2 with a crappy $10 or $15 update because it will have ray tracing in 30 FPS. In my opinion, I think they should have had The Last of Us Part 2 running at 60 FPS ready for the PS5 day 1 when the console came out. But whatever.
So yeah, the PlayStation 5, ladies and gentlemen, a fantastic hardcore gamer console with free exclusives after 6 months and games like Returnal priced at $70 or euros. Now, to be fair, this negative overview applies only to people like me that have finished every Sony exclusive under the sun when they came out on the PS4. But I think I'm in the minority here because there are a lot of people that didn't get to play everything like I have, and now they have a chance to do so, in some cases even in 60 FPS. From this point of view, yes, the PS5 is a wonderful machine. And I want to reiterate that this is my opinion after only 6 months with it. Now, after the big boys start dropping from the heavens above onto our TVs, having a PS5 will be universally justified. As I've said earlier, I've been playing on the Xbox Series X for a couple of months now, and I was fortunate enough to also play on the S for a while. And I'd like to say a couple of quick words about the S series first. This console is amazing. If you can't find the X and want to play on Xbox, I dare to say that you will not regret the overall experience. This one shares features with its big brother like Quick Resume, FPS Boost or Game Pass, but I'll go into those a bit later. The Series S has only 2 main drawbacks. The first one would be that it's best suited for 1080p gaming, but I don't necessarily consider that to be a drawback, to be honest. 4K loses its edge over Full HD if you're sitting further than 3 meters away from the TV. Resolution is distance versus clarity, and the farther away you are from the screen, the more the clarity increases. Anyway, the second major drawback of the S series is its disk space. You can only use 364 GB of storage for gaming, which can be bothersome, especially when games like Call of Duty can go upwards to 140 GB. So some storage management will be required as opposed to the X version where I had installed up to 30 games at once, which is quite nice because it gives you peace of mind. There is, however, the external SSD they made for it, but I wouldn't recommend it for the S version because that would sum up everything to the cost of the Xbox Series X. So yeah, the Series S is a great next generation console for an amazing price, as long as you know what you're buying. And it also makes for the perfect gift. Moving on to the most powerful console that ever existed, this one has an interesting story to tell, especially in contrast to the PS5, at least in the first 6 months of its existence, of course. One thing you might hear associated with Xbox nowadays is Game Pass, the $10 or $15 a month subscription service that gives you access to around 200 games. Downloadable, not streamable. They do have a streaming service called Xbox Cloud, but we're not there yet, so let's skip ahead. The games you find on Game Pass are not the Kitty Fufu Island 2 games you usually get on Games with Gold, but amazing indie, AA and AAA productions for one and all. I mean it, I dare you to look at the entire Game Pass Ultimate catalog and not find at least 5 games you would play. The great thing about Game Pass is that you will find games there you otherwise wouldn't have tried because they would cost X amount of money. That's what happened to me when I wanted to check out Desperados 3, finished it in 30+ hours, then I wanted something similar and I played Wasteland 3 for 60 to 70 hours. That would have never happened if it were not for Game Pass, because those types of games were never on my radar. And now I'm glad that I've expanded my taste in video games because of it. Another awesome feature I'd like to mention is Quick Resume, which at first I thought was kind of a gimmick, kind of useless, but I see the error of my ways now after using it. The point is that Quick Resume is a quality of life improvement. It's nothing revolutionary, but it sure makes things easier if you don't want to lose your progress, let's say in certain games, or if you want to check out another game while you're playing a different one. And last but not least in any capacity, FPS Boost. Guys and gals, FPS Boost is a godsend. It basically doubles the frame rate of some last-gen games. Why only some games? Because it's done in-house, by hand, by the nice folks at Microsoft, and not by the game's developers. It's not a patch. The awesome thing about it is that it makes some last-generation games that ran at 30 FPS go up to 60, and others that ran at 60 go up to 120 frames per second. Which is incredible for consoles. I've personally tested some of them like Battlefield 1 and 120Hz, where the boost isn't really that obvious, but in other games like Borderlands 3, the 120Hz boost mode is clearly visible compared to the 60 FPS one. Important note here so people don't get the wrong idea. While it's great to game in 120 frames per second, the visual impact from 60 to 120 is not even close to what you get from 30 to 60. So if that's an important issue for you, do not worry in the slightest if you only game in 60 Hz. It's the perfect number in my opinion, and everything above 60 FPS in games is just luxury, not a necessity. 60 is the necessity. Okay, so after the spec sheet showdown of the most advanced consoles that ever were, I would like to state my own personal experience and opinion on the matter. If you haven't figured it out by now, I'd give the first round to the Xbox for being so incredibly consumer-centric. For all the shitty things they did with the Xbox One launch, they more than compensated for this generation. The Game Pass is something of a revolution inside the gaming industry, and I'm expecting Sony to come up with their own version any day now. I'm saying it's revolutionary because if you only have to pay 10 or 15 bucks a month and get 100 or 200 games for that price, why would you ever go back to buying games at 70 euros like Returnal and so on? I think Game Pass is a game changer and it's only just begun. The FPS Boost is amazing to be honest, and I can finally play a ton of games I missed last generation in 60 FPS. For example, I wanted to play Assassin's Creed 2 the Ezio Collection on a console, and when I saw that Microsoft announced it for the FPS Boost, I pulled the trigger on it and got it. On the PS5, unfortunately, it only runs in 30 frames per second. I know this must seem biased, but I love them both, and both for different reasons. I'm not saying the PlayStation 5 let me down or anything, but I am saying that as a normal consumer wanting the most value for my buck, there is nothing else like the new Xbox generation out there. With over 200 games for just $15 a month, my time spent gaming is 80% done on the Xbox. And if you own an Xbox or a PS5, I'd appreciate it if you let me know about your experience in the commentary section. What you've been playing, what you like about it, and what you expect from it in the future. Thank you for sticking with me till the end, and thank you to all our patrons for supporting us. See you in the next one. Take care.